Hey everybody, I apologize about that. My camera battery died while I was doing the filming the other day of the marking knives. And so I finished them up, and what I have is I have my single bevel marking knife, my double bevel marking knife, burnishing rod, and a scratch awl marker. Now those have been hardened and tempered and ground, and they're ready to get handles and be final sharpened. So what I'm going to do is I still have some of the marking knife pieces that I didn't do anything to. I'm going to forge this up real quick, and I'm going to show you the heating, the hardening and tempering process that you missed. Alright, so with my limited skills, I have mediocrely forged up this knife, and I mean, I know I got some cold shuts here in the handle area, or in the shaft area, but this is not an impact tool, so I'm not overly concerned about it. Hopefully it works out fine. But now we're going to move on to the hardening and tempering process. So this is 01 tool steel. 01 tool steel means that you need to quench it in oil. So I have a bucket outside of some old motor oil, and it just happened, I do my own oil changes, so it happened to be free. If you don't do your own oil changes, you can use vegetable oil. The motor oil is very dirty and it smokes a lot, so you know, be aware. If you're using it a lot, you may want to put it near a window or something that you can ventilate. Now, it is winter here for us, and the oil is very cold because it's been sitting out here in the garage. So what we need to do is we need to heat the oil up, preheat it before we do our quench in it. And for that, I have a chunk of rebar here in the furnace, and I'm going to take that out to the oil, dunk it in the oil, and that'll give it a little bit of a preheat. And you can do this as many times as you need to bring it up to a nice warm temperature. So there's my rebar in the fire. And we're going to take it out to the oil now, and you're going to see how bad this smokes. I'm just going to leave that in there to sit for a few minutes, absorb all the heat into the oil so that the oil is properly preheated. It's actually still very thick, so we may have to do this a couple of times to get this to the right temperature. Yeah, it's still cold. I'm going to preheat it a couple more times. Okay, so now that we've preheated the oil, I am going to start heating up the knife. Now, what we need to do is we need to bring this up to a temperature where it is no longer magnetic. That's usually going to be around the time when the steel turns a bright orange. Okay, so we have lost we're still magnetic right up here, not down there. So that's more than the tool really needs to be hardened. I mean, ultimately you only need to harden maybe a ½ inch of the tip, but I like to do it more. More is usually better for me, in my opinion. Now once we take this out, we want to plunge it into the oil right away. So the oil is right below me inside. It's going to smoke a little bit, but with this little piece of steel, it's not going to be too bad. And ready, set, here we go. Swirl it around. Now to test this, we're going to take a file, and file bites back here and skates up here at the tip. That is exactly what we want. We are hard at least up to here, which is perfect. Now we're going to clean the black off of this so that we can move on to the tempering process. Okay. So at this moment, I have cleaned off, so we have a nice clean surface, and we can see the colors running up the blade. We're going to do the tempering process now, because at the moment, this blade is extremely hard. This is as hard as this steel is ever going to get. In fact, if I were to drop this, there's a chance that it might break, and we don't want that. We want this to hold an edge, but not break if it's dropped. And what we're going to do is I got the torch out, and it's on a very low setting. And I'm going to heat up well back from the area that we want to temper. We want to keep it hard So I'm heating up the handle area, and what we're going to do is we're going to watch the blade area, and you will see first brown and then a purple kind of running up the blade, and we want to stop before the purple gets to the edge. We're going to re-quench it in the oil at the right moment. Alright, so I'm starting to see a little bit of color creeping up. And right about there. That stops the tempering process. And when we clean this off, we should have a nice, hard, but durable edge. And we can move on to the grinding and beveling and shaping and sharpening and put a handle on it. Okay, so now that we've finished making the blade, tempering, hardening, we need to flatten it, grind it out to its final profile. Now, you could do this all on stones or with a grinder, but a sander, a belt sander, if you're going to make blades, that is your best bet to do the rough work. Just keep a container of water handy to cool it so that you don't mess up the hardening that you just spent time doing. But this is going to help us to lap it and create the edge. And then we'll polish it and finish it off on the whetstones. So now that my blades are all ready and everything is done with those, now we're going to work on the handles. And I've selected out some chunks of wood that I had kicking around the shop. This was, I believe, maple. I'm not sure. Maybe Cocobolo, Paduke, or Red Heart. Again, maybe Cocobolo. I'm not entirely sure. This looks like maybe some walnut or hickory. This is definitely walnut. That's Purple Heart. Another piece of Purple Heart. And Honduran rosewood. Now, I'm not really sure which ones of these I'm going to use, but this is what I have. So this is what I'm going to use for the handles. So for the awl, I think I'm going to go with one of these larger pieces. Give it kind of a fat, bulbous handle, something good that I can press down on to mark the wood, to mark holes out with. So I'm liking this walnut for it, or maybe this scrap of I don't know what. Yeah, I like this one. We'll use that. Alright, so now we're going to drill some holes for the shafts of our tools to go into. Now that we have all the holes drilled, we can take these back to the lathe and turn them. Alright, so let's start off with something fun. We're going to do the Purple Heart. Chuck that up in the lathe. So this is going to be for one of our marking knives. And we're going to start off by turning it all round to get it going. So, one of the first things I have to do is I have some pieces of copper pipe here that I salvaged and cut off of a longer piece. And we're going to use these for the ferrule. We need to turn this down to the inside diameter here so that we can fit it on over that. First thing we need to do is mark off about how much of this we want to turn. And that looks about right to me. Yep, that gives us a little bit for afterwards. And we're going to take the parting tool and we're going to bring that end down to size. Alright, check early, check often, and make sure that we don't overshoot. And perfect. Alright, a little bit of super glue on here, and fit that on. And some accelerator. And that should be stuck on there pretty good now. Now I need to decide how big I want this handle. And I mean, really, it doesn't need to be any bigger than my hand. So right about there, I want the handle to come to an end. And boom. I'm going to use the parting tool again to put a nice defined mark here. Alright, so here's the fun part. Because at this point, you can pretty much turn this into whatever you want. Any shape you desire. I'm going to start by bringing this part here down to meet the ferrule, so that it'll make a nice transition. And then, I don't know, we'll scoop it out a little bit here, put some decoration onto it, make it look pretty. Alright, we're going to close this out now with some sanding. We could go shinier on the ferrule here if we wanted to, or we could leave this as it's brushed. I think I want to be shiny, so we're just going to keep working it through the grits. Well, I mean, yeah, that's not a bad handle. Let me get the knife part.